Okay, good evening everyone and welcome to the February 22nd regular council meeting. This evening under presentations, we're pleased to have our MLA, Minister Carr, via Zoom. Welcome, Minister Carr. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And we can start with questions from council. Shelley, Councillor Vroba, we'll start with you and go around the room, please.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for coming tonight. Minister Carr, has the provincial government thought about placing COVID restrictions based on the area of the province with their COVID positive cases versus blanketing the whole entire province? I've been hearing from quite a few people in the southeast. Basically, they feel very restricted when we have a very low case number.
Yeah, actually, Shelley, that's a really great question, and I've been asked that before. And it's something that I've actually been advocating for simply because our case count is so low. Right now, I guess the opinion of the collective right now is that we're in this as a province, so the same rules will apply right across the entire province. I guess one of the concerns with having different rules for different areas of our province when, I mean, you know as well as I that we have relatives across the entire province and we travel very easily. So if we lifted restrictions in the south because our numbers are low, there's no question that, you know, for example, my family, my sister lives in Saskatoon, my daughter lives in Warman, they'd be here in a heartbeat to come visit and have more open restrictions, which really just, I mean, that's how the virus travels. So right now, it's not happening that way, but it is something that I do continue to advocate for simply because of the great work that's been happening in the south and our low numbers.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I just think also we continually request people to do certain things. We remind them of that. So I think in the beginning we did do it by areas. We did it for north versus south. And I also think if they did it, again, we have 2 right now in our area. I think there's a social responsibility by each person to just ensure that we're not encouraging that kind of traveling. And I know, again, the response will be, but people will. But I think those are the same people that are already breaking the restrictions now. So I just think it's hard when everyone's being penalized. But thank you for advocating for that, because I hope you're successful. The other question I had is last time we spoke, we had discussed how the provincial government had put in extra funding for mental health in our province. And I was just wondering, because I still do hear from people who say they try to get mental health help and it's a 4 to 5 month wait. Unless you're going to harm yourself, then you get immediate action. But some people just really just need someone to talk to get them off the brink. So I was just wondering if you could update us if our area had any new psychologists brought in or what has been happening in our area with mental health.
What was the very last you said, if our area?
Oh, if our area had actually received any new psychologists dedicated to this area, or at least if you could just update us as to what has been happening in mental health area.
Right, so this is going to overlap a little bit with the question that was sent to me in advance, but with mental health and addictions, we are continually looking for more psychologists right across the entire province. I'm not sure if we have any openings or if we're full to capacity within our region, but it is absolutely something that we're hearing about. So we continue to try and recruit those kinds of professionals within the entire province, not just the south area, which obviously we're most concerned about because that's where our people are living. But yeah, it's a really tough one. And I guess just with COVID, we've seen a bit of an increase in people looking for services, and it's put a bit of a pressure on some of our community-based organizations. And they've really stepped up to the challenge for us and kind of, I guess, shifted the way some of the services are happening and focusing on, I guess, the initial needs right now. But as we move forward, right now with our budget, we put $435 million a year into mental health and addictions. And that is a $33 million increase from the previous year. I obviously can't comment on exactly what the budget is going to be for this upcoming year. We're just in those deliberations right now. But I do know that it is a huge focus for this government, and we are fully aware of, I guess, the pressures that we had going into COVID. but the pressures that have come to light because of COVID and the services that people are going to need. So yes, we will be putting, we are putting more money into it. We'll see what happens with this upcoming year, but I think it's pretty high on our list of priorities.
Thank you. Thank you for those answers.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Vrova. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Your Worship. I didn't have a prepared question, so I'm going to pass. But
Okay.
thank you for taking time for us today, Laurie. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Walliser.
Thank you. My questions were quite similar to Shelley's. In addition to mental health services, if you could talk about your portfolio in social services, which includes housing, community living, child protection, services for youth, seniors, and people with disabilities. What increase in support can your constituents here expect from your government?
Okay, so as I just mentioned, we currently are in budget deliberations, so it would be inappropriate for me to comment on any proposals or anything that has come forward and what we may or may not be funding in this upcoming fiscal year. But the budget does drop in early April, so you will have answers to those questions. I have actually had the opportunity to be in contact with some of our community-based organizations and have had meetings with them, specifically SARC and Envision. So these two organizations are great organizations within our community and have been providing great services during COVID. They've also had the opportunity to tell me the way they actually altered the way they were delivering their services throughout COVID, because sometimes the face-to-face wouldn't work. But they did manage to work through it, whether it be virtual or sometimes it just has to happen face-to-face. And as I talked to them and they told me the protocols they put in place, I felt really good that they were doing the best service they can as safely as possible. And it's through these meetings that I guess we become aware of any needs or any gaps within the system or requests that they might have. So the third-party organizations that you referenced in your email do have funding from the Government of Saskatchewan. So the Estevan Family Resource Center has been successful in their grant applications in the past. And I believe that the last one they received in this last fiscal year was $25,000. Envision Counseling actually receives annual funding from the government. They've received it for the past few years. In 2017-18, they actually received just over $695,000. And it's been a slight increase every year since. So this past fiscal year, the one we're in right now, they actually received $725,000. So we'll have to wait and see what is going to happen with the 21-22 budget. So it is with those existing dollars that they work within. And of course, depending on what's happening in the individual organizations or communities that they're working in, sometimes they do have to shift the priorities that they are focusing on, depending on exactly what's happening in those individual communities and what the demands are. I mean, it's no different than, I guess, your city council as you go through your budget deliberations. Some priorities come to the top because they're more important or more urgent, and other things get pushed aside. So it would be very similar to something like that. Now, does that answer that part of your question?
Yes, thank you. Would you like to speak specifically to the opiate crisis and the overdose deaths in the province, or was that covered in the mental health question?
No, for sure. As far as overdoses happening within the province of Saskatchewan, we do understand that a one-size-fits-all does not necessarily work. That's why we continue to collaborate with stakeholders across the entire province. One of the key actions that we've actually taken regarding overdoses specifically is the implementation of the take-home Naloxone kits. And since that program actually began in 2015, probably most of you hadn't heard of it till this year because we really have had, unfortunately, quite a few overdoses this year. But the program has been going since 2015. More than 9,900 kits have been distributed. And unfortunately, 5,400 of those have been in the 2021 year. So a 100% increase this year alone since then. More than 11,600 people have completed training on these kits so they know how to administer them. And these are the people within our healthcare facilities, our community-based organizations that would be dealing with this type of stuff on an ongoing basis. More than 1,900 kits have been used to actually reverse an overdose that has been happening. And let's see here. The kits are actually free, and they are available in more than 30 communities across the province. And we also have Indigenous Services Canada that also provides free kits and training to the Saskatchewan First Nations. I already mentioned with the mental health and addictions, we have a $435 million budget. One of those items that we were really happy, I was really happy to be able to fund last year were the the addiction treatment beds within St. Joseph's Hospital. That center has 15 beds targeted for crystal meth and the 5 remaining beds for other substances. And everything that I've heard from the officials regarding that facility, it has been operating pretty successfully. The sad part is we have a really long waiting list, so there is truly a demand for these beds within the province. And as we move forward with future budgets, we are committed to funding mental health and addiction, so hopefully we see more of that coming in the future.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Walliser. Councillor Ford.
Thanks for coming, Minister Carr. My question was actually similar to Councillor Veroba's, just about the mental health initiatives that are being taken, and just, the longer that COVID keeps happening, we see more and more mental health issues amongst families, amongst very seemingly strong people who everyone is just at their breaking point. So I think it's important for the government to advocate for more mental health services in our area, because everybody's just at the point where we can't handle it anymore, and it's happening with everybody. So it's good that the government's advocating for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ford. Councillor Cernick.
Congratulations on becoming the Minister of Social Services. My daughter is in her first year of becoming an Indigenous social worker, and she had a bunch of questions, but they all kind of boiled down to what is your role and responsibility of Social Services Minister?
Okay, so I guess my role truly is to give strategic direction and oversee the services and the funding that takes place within the Ministry of Social Services. Of course, with input and collaboration between my cabinet and my other caucus members. But within social services, it's a pretty long list of things that we're responsible for here. So it includes, but it's not limited to, adoption services, child protection, community living services, financial assistance programs, foster care, housing. We have services for people with disabilities, seniors, and youth. And I guess when I first got to the ministry, I was like, oh, gee, I wonder kind of what stuff is in Estevan as far as these portfolios go. So we've got SARCAN Diversified Services, that is one of ours. We've got Envision Counseling, we've got the Estevan Housing Authority. So those are just some of the ones that are specifically within Estevan. And then of course we have foster parents and our social services that's within Estevan. But it's a pretty full portfolio.
All right, thank you for that. And just one more question, which kind of would affect our coal industry around here, is just what's the current status of the legal battle against the carbon tax?
Well, we're actually hoping to get some type of a judgment this month, within the month of February, but of course it is at the Supreme Court, and we're kind of at the whim of when they decide to make their decision. So we're hoping by the end of February, but we have to wait on their timeline now.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cernick. Councillor Frank.
Thanks so much, Laurie. Thanks so much, Minister Carr. I got to tell you that through the proper name, or I'll be in trouble here, or His Worship won't be very happy with me. The only one I really kind of wanted to ask, and I apologize, I should have sent this in advance, but it's not so much of a question as just a little bit of an opinion here that I'd love to pass on. Is recently, I'm sure as you know, the federal government's kind of made some legislation regarding gun legislation that will be put towards municipalities. I applaud Premier Moe for pushing this back to the federal government, who then pushed it back saying you're not going to stop that. This is something I've kind of been keeping an eye on just to see how it plays out, as I think this is a pretty large discussion, obviously a very heated debate in many countries, including our own, and something that is frankly, not that we're not wonderful at our jobs, but we are not the politicians to be making a decision that is that drastic. So something I hope Premier Moe will continue to fight to make sure does not come back to municipalities, and something I also think we should pass along to SUMA and FCM, because I'm sure that we're followed by many other communities of part-time counselors who don't want to go through the legal and ethical discussions of gun legislation in their communities. It's a little bit beyond what we need to be dealing with.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Travis. I'd like to thank you, Minister Carr, for the 1.65 MEEP grant, 1.65 million. Thank you for that. We put that toward our police station. Much appreciated. And of course, with the clean coal dialogue, and we realize that you're in our corner and you continue to advocate for clean coal, with units 5 going down, or the units 4 going down the end of this year, and Unit 5 going down the end of 24. I guess the government really won't know until, what, about 2024, what the answer is going to be for power production in the province?
Yeah, so basically it comes down to when the capital decisions have to be made, and we're looking at about 2024. And so at that point in time, we'll weigh all of the measures, obviously, between all the different types of fuel that needs to be put in to make those work. And I think we can all agree that right now with natural gas, it's going to be a pretty hot commodity, and the price of that will probably go up within the next 3 years. It's pretty low right now, and obviously that will work in our favor. But as we move forward, we'll weigh all of those decisions based on the capital expense, the operating going out. So as 2024 comes and gets closer, we'll look at all of those, because the numbers are going to be completely different today than what they are in 3 years as far as that information goes. So to make a decision right now, say, we're going to go ahead with something, and then all of a sudden in 2024, all of the circumstances change for whatever reason, who knows? Maybe the Trudeau government will say absolutely no coal ever, period. We just don't know those things. So when that capital decision has to be made, it's about that year. I will continue to advocate and make the case for clean coal, carbon capture within the city of Estevan and surrounding area. I think there's a lot more that we need to look at, that they need to take into consideration when we're weighing that, the workforce, the economic, what happens to the economy in Estevan if those go away, different things like that.
Okay, well, thank you, Minister Carr. Did you have any questions of us or any comments you'd like to make?
Well, I guess first of all, I'd like to welcome all of the new councillors and say congratulations. It's a really rewarding role. Being a city councillor, you truly do have that individual autonomy to help make those decisions to make your community a better place to live. So just embrace it, and having worked with your worship for several years, you can be pretty open and speak freely to him, so give him your opinion. But yeah, congratulations. And I just want to also thank the city and all of the community members that actually have been working on economic development. I guess the RM and Bean Fate and Coalfields, they're all a part of this too. But you guys have really been working very, very hard with those projects, bringing the ideas forward. And I have 100% confidence that sooner than later, a really good project is going to stick, and we're going to see some diversification within our communities. So thank you for all that hard work, Your Worship.
Okay, well, thank you, Minister Carr, and again, thank you for all of the help that you've given us. Much appreciated.
You're welcome, and I'm going to stay and listen to your next presenter if that's okay.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you. Okay, this evening again, we're happy to have with us from St. Joe's, the CEO. I just about said Councillor Hoffert, but that was past tense. Mr. Hoffert, happy to see you again. And we have Brianne van de Woestijn and Laurie Jarvet. Welcome. And I guess you're here tonight to answer any questions on the foundation. Thank you again for coming.
Just to note, the microphone for Lori's right there, so if you just speak up. Like, sorry, that's for access, but that's for Lori's here.
Just so, do you want us to speak up? Is that
Yeah,
what you're saying?
Yeah, talk loud.
Not usually a problem, but
Okay, did you have any comments you'd like to say first off? And then we'll just go around the council chambers and the questions can be asked.
Yeah, for sure. So, hi, my name is Brianne van de Woestijn. I haven't met all of you, so thank you for inviting myself and Greg to come and present on behalf of the Hospital Foundation and the hospital itself. I think first and foremost, my biggest thing that I would like to say is thank you to each and every one of you for your support for our Hospital Foundation and in turn our hospital. It is a vital part of our foundation is the municipality and the city support that we do receive, and so we don't take that lightly. It is a very big part of why our hospital is what it is today, and so thank you for that support, and again, thank you for letting us come here and answering any questions that you may have.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Brianne. Appreciate that. Greg, did you have anything you wanted to
I
say?
would, Brianna said that very well. I would echo that. It's no secret, the support of Southeast Saskatchewan, led by the city of Estevan and surrounding municipalities, is a large part of what makes our hospital tick. Most people, I think, realize that government funds the operations of the hospital and provides a little bit of funding each year for things like equipment or different initiatives they have going on, but in the overall scheme of things, very little for equipment, and that is the importance of the Hospital Foundation, the good work of boards here on the Hospital Foundation, Your Worship, and we just can't thank this community enough and the local municipalities that make that happen. We have an inventory of equipment of approximately $10 million at St. Joseph's Hospital that expires on a regular basis, and there are at any given year many projects going on, and so that generosity truly allows the good work that goes on at the hospital to happen. And so, as Brianne said, we thank you very much, and we're not here asking for anything. We're here to thank you and answer your questions.
Okay, thank you, Greg. And Laurie, although she's very quiet, she's a very integral part of this
Sure.
team
Definitely, yes.
as well. So thank you, Laurie. I noticed you have a small pistol in case things get out of hand. That's important to have back up, eh, Greg, as we all know.
Uh-oh.
Anyway, we'll start the questions. Go ahead, Councillor Broba.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to all three of you for coming tonight. I have had the pleasure for the last 4 years sitting on the hospital board, and I've seen firsthand the hard work that all of you have put into it, and also the great things that the Hospital Foundation has done for the hospital. Because again, any one of us that has gone to other hospitals can see that Estevan in the last 5 to 10 years has done great things in that hospital, right from the helipad down to the addiction center now. So, I mean, that's your hard work has shown, and I think the doctors' recruitment and retention, I like the list that's here, and I hopefully it continues, but I know even Weyburn is seeing now the struggle with retaining doctors once our longtime doctors decide to retire. So continue the good work, and thank you for what you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Broba. Councillor Clark?
Just, I'm awful new to this, but I know there's a lot to learn. Could you give me kind of an update on where you are with staffing and the professionals today, as far as, are you seeing any daylight with that? Or I know that there's always people coming and going, but just an update on sort of where you're at today.
Like medical stuff?
Yeah, any of the doctors or any of the specialized trained people.
For sure. Thank you for the question and Your Worship. I would say there is ongoing progress. Recruitment is not as big of it's an ongoing issue and initiative, but retention is our big one, and getting them to come here is not quite as hard as getting physicians to stay, and truthfully, there's more jobs than there is physicians in our country right now, and as Councillor Verova said, Weyburn is going through it, and it's just not us, it's the whole country. There's an awful lot of opportunity for young doctors nowadays, and they're very portable, and they used to come to communities and stay their entire working career, and they don't seem to as much anymore, and you know, we need to continue to work to figure out what is going to increase that longevity, and we do an awful lot of research. And interestingly enough, a lot of the doctors that have left Estevan are a great part of our recruiting network, and we just signed an obstetrician gynecologist. He just started within the last week, and we'll be announcing that to the community this week. I guess I kind of scooped you there, David. But sorry. And that was a direct referral of a former obstetrician that we had in Estevan, who now resides by Toronto in Ontario. As far as the physician, we have about 12 in town. We are continually recruiting because we'd like a few more, and there's still folks that can't get an appointment because there's not enough family physician time in town, it would seem. And secondly, we're aware of the fact that physicians are still a little bit transient, and we're never sure when the next one may decide to find new opportunities, and as I mentioned, there's great opportunity there. So continually recruiting on that. The two of the keys right now for us are we have the one obstetrician gynecologist permanent here now, full-time, and he is supported by a locum pool of primarily 3 or 4 physicians, a couple of which have practiced here in the past and come back because they enjoy the opportunity to practice here. But we need another permanent person in the obstetrics line. The other really key one is anesthesiology. And so we'd like another family physician with those skills as well, or 2, to be honest. We have a very dedicated guy, Dr. Baptist, right now, who covers us for a lengthy period of time, and when he's here, he works extremely long and diligent, and it works for him, and then he takes a few months off, and we have been covering through locum services, and we've managed to stay virtually gap-free for the past couple of years on that, but we are in discussions with some folks with those credentials, and you know, it's there is no stone left unturned because that is key. We cannot have a gap in those services, but those are 2 of the more critical ones that we're looking at, is the anesthesiology piece and the obstetrical piece.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Clark. Councillor Walliser, please.
Thank you. I want to echo the same concerns that you raised. Lots of patients, lots of community members talk about the problem with having a new family doctor every 2 years, how in the last 10 years they've had 5 or more doctors, and the anxiety and stress that brings for patients, the fear that something might get missed or overlooked because they're not able to form that lasting relationship with their care provider. If you could talk a little bit about the section here that talks about doctors retained and what the foundation currently considers a successful retention. As you mentioned, we're not really looking at kind of that career physician at this point. It's more immediate term would be a successful retained physician. Is that correct?
Yeah, and as recently as today, we're in regular communication with the health authority regarding recruitment and retention, and of course the retention is the key. The health authority has been very helpful. The government a few years ago in the ministry created the SIPA program, which has been an amazing tool in terms of bringing physicians to Canada, and we've had an enormous amount of them there. The challenge is it comes with a 3-year return service, and typically they leave after 3 years. For better or worse, Estevan was not the community they were desiring. It was an access point for them. And so the significance we put on retention is enormous. And we have a purposeful recruiting with regards to the physicians that may latch onto and really love the community of Estevan would be the ultimate goal. The challenge is finding those folks. The challenge is there's an opportunity for them right across our country. We have local kids becoming physicians and are not always returning to Estevan for a practice. We're open to just about anything, and any advice, any support, just anything from our community. And I would say, I think, Brianne, there are a few folks in our community indicating that they'd like to be a part of that piece and retention. But I think, for better or worse, we haven't successfully figured out how to recruit the physicians that are going to stay here long term. It's no secret that's what's happening, and to lead to your point that they're leaving and having to have a new family doctor every couple of years. So, I'm not sure that I even answered your question, other than to let you know that we share that concern and the challenge of trying to figure out that retention piece.
I guess more specifically, this total listed on the funding report, some of these physicians, I would assume, are kind of nearing the end of the commitments that they made.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Does this total also work to retain them past that initial agreement?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's something we haven't made, or I guess Brianne can speak to this. There hasn't been financial incentives for retention. The effort, and I would say we're similar to other communities in that, is the retention efforts are geared at helping them move to Estevan, transition their practice, or start their first practice in many instances. When they're coming out of med school with an enormous debt load, and also to help them integrate into the community in terms of helping them start the practice, so they can spend their first months in Estevan practicing medicine instead of trying to start a business. So as far as the foundation incentives for retention, that really hasn't been, it's really something that is not an incentive that is used anywhere that I'm aware of, but certainly, I mean, I'm just not so sure how much we can ask of our community in terms of funding things like that as well. And we're very aware of the generosity, and that should never be taken for granted, and the large dollars that the municipalities do put forth for physician recruitment. And I guess we would certainly want to know what their thoughts are through the foundation before we started offering incentives like that. But, and truthfully, after they've been here a few years, would that small financial incentive be the deal breaker to keep them here versus another community that they're being recruited to? We're in big competition with a number of centers, and we're at that competition table. And don't get me wrong, it's not an environment we like, and we wish we weren't there, but without being there, we'd have even less physicians in town.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Walliser. Councillor Ford.
Hi, thanks for coming. Just a quick question. With the issue of sometimes being able to keep doctors and a lot of them moving away to other centers or different opportunities, are you finding that the doctors that are staying are experiencing burnout of any sort? And if so, how are you guys managing that, if that is actually a problem?
Yeah. Actually, it's an issue that we need to be aware of for all healthcare professionals right now, and not just physicians, but certainly it's something that we're aware of. And in our discussions with, part of the problem is the numbers. So, for example, we'll take the anesthesiology piece. We would love to have 3, and that collegial support and the work-life balance that would give them. We're just not big enough to sustain 3. We're Estevan, I would say, in my years on council, I would say it's an issue in recreation, it's an issue in healthcare, it's an issue in physician recruitment. We're a community that's large enough to need the service, all of these services, but not quite big enough to have the miracle solution to sustain them all. So our goal is to have 2 anesthesiologists and 2 obstetrician, or 2 people in the obstetrical pool, whether they're a specialist or a family physician with the training. And that is for 2 reasons: A, to give them a work-life balance, and to give them enough meaningful work so they stay here as well, because they'll leave for that reason as well. If the workload is too much, they'll find a place where it's not, and if they don't get enough work in their discipline, and we've lost several for that reason, they will go somewhere else as well. So, yeah, it's a tough one for sure.
It is. It's definitely a tough one. Do you think that with the implementation of things during COVID, and I mean, this will be a forever thing with programs like Lumica, where you're able to virtually basically video call a doctor that's not in Estevan, are you finding that that burden of a too heavy workload has eased a little bit, or is it's difficult with COVID because everybody's overwhelmed by everything, but do you think that'll help ease the burden of that workload a little bit if that is the case?
You don't know. Virtual healthcare is becoming a thing fast. I also manage a facility in Radville, and we're in a pilot program there to try and determine how that ER can stay open if they're down in physician numbers by having virtual ERs and physician in other communities. But it's going to be a transition, and likely a long one. I don't know that the general public is completely buying into the virtual, and they still want to see their doctor face to face. And all of the docs in town right now are seeing patients both ways, virtually and when necessary in person. And we have some concern about that people want to see their doctor because that's how it's always been done. I think it does have potential to maybe help that burden a little bit, but we're in the infancy of that and pushed forward because of COVID, like you mentioned, and so we'll see where that goes.
Awesome. Thanks. That's all the questions I have.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ford. Councillor Cernak.
Thank you, Worship. Thank the foundation for coming out tonight. You have 4 on the list of current revitalization projects. Just wonder if you could briefly just touch on each and see where they're at.
Yeah, I can do that. So yeah, on our funding report, our biggest goal, I guess, or not really a concern, but a new exciting thing that we did bring to our hospital this year was our Addiction Recovery Center. And so the foundation was very excited to be a part of that as well, and in turn our community. So for that one, we actually put over $100,000 into that facility, which went to furnishings and the furniture, which was all bought locally, which was awesome as well. But that one was our big project this year, and again, it goes to show the support of our community. That was a true community fundraiser. We had our radiothon this year that got postponed 3 times. It was a lot of obstacles that were in front of that, and we were able to host it about 6 months late, but we still pulled through and raised over $100,000. And so the community dollars went straight into that addiction center, which is something that we should all be proud of supporting. Another one would be the long-term care renovations. We were very lucky to receive a bequest from the Mylan Chase estate that all went towards long-term care. So currently we are kind of slightly delayed with COVID restrictions in that facility, but we are working on completely renovating that facility. So that included new flooring, new paint, resident rooms being renovated, things like that. So that is something that's very exciting and also very needed in that facility right now. And then a big one that's actually upcoming this year will be about a $200,000 to $300,000 renovation into our chemotherapy and our pharmacy department, which is a huge part of our hospital, is being able to have those services in chemotherapy right here at home. So that's another very large revitalization project that we're working on. And yeah, so those are our top 3, but I think there's constantly new upgrades coming to that building. It's about 30 years old, so there's constantly something that's in need of support, and we're just excited to help in any way that we can.
Right on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cernak. Councillor Frank.
Sure, and thanks again for coming. Just in regards to the physician recruitment a little bit, I know this was an issue in the past, I don't know if it still is, but are you finding that you're losing any doctors to other SHA hospital, like Saskatchewan-based hospitals? And if so, is there anything, now that we have one overarching health authority, that could be done? Because that, I know, at one time was a bit of an issue where we were either competing to win a physician for our hospital against other Saskatchewan hospitals, or losing them to that, which seems almost redundant within the province, right?
Yeah, it does, and I would say it's probably improving, and there's a more provincially focused effort, and we're seeing, this will delight you, Your Worship. I know we had many years of challenges and wondering if enough was being done on our behalf, but that there is a more collective effort in the health authority to recruit physicians. So I would say we're seeing a little bit less competition, and we were on both sides of that. We took doctors that were destined for other places, and they snatched them from us when they had a chance as well, and as ridiculous as that sounds, it's the environment that we didn't pick the rules, we just have to figure out how to live within them. But I would say there is less of that going on in the province and a little more coordinated effort.
That's good to hear. That's, wanted to ask that with Minister Carr on as well. I think that's an important one, that we're not competing in our own province for our own physicians, so great.
I would say in the last few years, we've lost more out of province than in province. So, and it's not always another person coming into Estevan to find our physicians. It's sometimes a physician looking for an opportunity somewhere else, and there's lots of people happy to provide them one. So.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Frank. And thank you again for coming this evening. Greg, Brianne, and Laurie, we very much appreciate it. I'd just like to take this opportunity. I see that with Minister Carr still being part of the meeting, I'd like to thank her, and especially you, Greg, and Brianne and Laurie, for the addictions. I know you worked collectively with Minister Carr, and you landed that here in Estevan. That means jobs for our community. That's a success story, and we thank you for that. And I'd like to thank Minister Carr for her efforts on that as well. Okay, so I guess that brings to an end the Q&A. I jumped you guys up to presentations, which went against the decorum, so I've already made a mistake tonight, but I know you guys are busy, and this will give you the opportunity. I'm sure you don't want to stay for another 2 hours for the meeting, although you may. That would be great. Just like old times, Greg, but yeah. And again, thank you, Minister Carr, for staying with us. I know you're a very busy lady, so thank you for that.
You're welcome. As much as I'd love to sit and listen to the rest, I've been here since 7 a.m., so I'm going to go back to my condo now.
Okay, thank you for that. And
Good night, guys.
Yeah, good night. And again, thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So moving forward, could I have a motion, please, to adopt the agenda as presented? Thank you, Councillor Broba, seconded by Councillor Clark. Any questions? If not, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, could I have a motion, please, to adopt the minutes of the council meeting held on January 25th, 2021? Thank you, Councillor Frank, seconded by Councillor Ford. Any questions or comments? If not, ready for the question? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, under original communications, delegations, and petitions, we have correspondence from Kerry Gilroy, a request for local improvement abatement. What's the wish of council on this? Councillor Broba.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think this falls back into the same category when we discussed it in 2017. And unfortunately, I've had discussions with Carrie in the last couple of years. She had other reasons too why she wanted different things done with the taxes. And I think this is her final year, and I think she's grateful for it. I know I have a sister a block away. My sister's probably also grateful for the fact that being her last year in the abatement, but unfortunately, we didn't do it for anyone else. I don't see a reason why we would do it for Carrie, so I would have to say that we decline her request.
Okay, are you making a
Yes,
motion?
that would be my motion, that we decline this request.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Broba. We have a motion. Have we got a seconder? Thank you. Councillor Cernick. Any further comments or questions? If not, ready for the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, under original communications, delegations, and petitions, we have correspondence from Habitat for Humanity. And I know they were at a previous meeting. So we've got their correspondence and the fact that now Habitat for Humanity and PA, Saskatoon, and Regina are coming together to serve more families in our province. Our 3 affiliates and their chapters have merged from Habitat for Humanity, Saskatchewan, to better help families build bright futures through affordable housing. The Habitat for Humanity merger will bring together collective strengths to support over 20 families. By gaining efficiencies in our operations, we will be able to build more homes. And then to support the construction of 80 homes across Saskatchewan, Connexus Credit Union has pledged $1 million to Habitat Saskatchewan over the next 4 years to help out. Councillor Vrova, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Your Worship. I know we talked about this at the last meeting. I also think as a council, we've also been talking about ways in the future to ensure that our third-party grant allocations are streamlined with the policy. So I think at this time, we probably should proceed with accepting their request, and I would make the motion unless Councillor Clark has anything. No? With that other
I'm gonna
part?
speak on
Okay, I'm going to let
We
Councillor
can have
Clark.
discussion after
Yeah.
it's seconded, but you have a motion?
I think Councillor Clark may have another idea too, so I just want to hear what he has to say before I make a motion.
Okay. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I have some to add, and it's kind of like a three-way trade in baseball. I found 3 people that need something. So this, as a member of the art gallery, they need their Northwest Mounted Police building painted. I've talked to the Habitat for Humanity people. They've gone over and looked at it. It would mean that I guess that they would do that, and we would have to pay them for doing that. Now, how we do that is probably where we're at right now. I don't know that everything's there, but it is in the process of them. Habitat has looked at it. They're waiting for me to say whether how to proceed, but I think they're willing to take on that project. I think they're a good group that would be willing to do that. It's not a just go slap a couple of coats of paint on. There's a lot of prep work to do. So one thing we could do is give it some time until we see what they think they would be looking at for compensation for that, and then bring it back here and see where that fits in.
Okay, I think that's a great idea. Councillor Lindsay, thank you for doing that. I think here's an opportunity. They can do the necessary work that we need to get done on the RCMP building, and at the same time get their funding. I think it's a great idea. Thank you for that. Councillor Walliser, you have a comment?
I do. I would like to voice my support for this option. We're always looking for ways to bring our community together, to create that feeling that's been lost because of COVID. Finding ways for groups to support other groups is something that I can absolutely support. Lindsay also mentioned that this is something that we have the ability to give time to. So the build isn't happening until 2023, and if it takes a little while for these groups to figure out how they're going to arrange this, I think there's no urgency in granting that $10,000 request at this meeting tonight.
Yeah, I think that's fine. We can wait. They can give us a price. We can work something out. We could even supply the paint and the brushes and the wood. They can do the work. It could be a win-win. Councillor Frank.
I'll just echo a little bit of what Councillor Walliser said. For 4 years, we sat in this room and really tried to sell the message to our many third-party grants and groups that, we need some collaboration in our community. And this is just a win-win for everybody. So I really love going down this path. I think this is a great picture of what our community should be at all times. And so thank you to Councillor Clark for kind of bringing on the discussion. And I think we should look forward to more discussion with these 2 groups to figure out how we can make that happen. I think that's the perfect solution.
Absolutely. Thank you. Councillor Ford.
Thanks, Your Worship. I would like to echo what Councillor Walliser and Councillor Frank has said. A big thanks to Councillor Clark for kind of spearheading this. This is a fantastic idea. I'm 100% behind it. It is. It's a very good community-minded thing, and it's people helping people. And I mean, I'm a part of a number of different organizations in the community, and we always look for ways that we can partner with other people, and people can partner with us to be able to help each other. So this is just a great idea, and it'll hopefully maybe, jumpstart some other organizations to be like, hey, what can we be involved with in the city and other places? And it's going to set a great precedent, I think, in the city.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Ford. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Your Worship. I wanted also, I think one of the things that I probably missed out on, that is the entrance to the city. That is one of the first things that people see as they're coming in, and they look over and they say, gee, what's that old building doing there? That must, is it a house, whatever it is. I think it will bring on that whole thing with the revitalizing it to look like the community cares about that. And I think that for the city is a real win, that when that's what you see driving into the city, it'll draw people to the art gallery because they'll see that there's something there instead of something that looks like it should be torn down. But I think it's a great way to I guess, have a good first impression for the city. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Clark. We'll take our lead from you. So if you don't mind having those conversations with Doug, when we get the price set, we can help out however they want to do it. We supply the paint and the lumber. I mean, unless they want to do that, but all those intricacies can be worked out. So then whenever you get that nailed down, you can come back to council and we'll make it happen. Thank you for that. Okay.
So you're not going to put a motion on the floor for the $10,000?
No, I think we'll wait. Councillor Verova wanted to wait, City Clerk, until we have the conversation. And I think as Councillor Walliser pointed out, they don't really need the 10,000 till 23 anyway. So here's an opportunity for them this year to do the work. We pay them, and then they can put that in their bank account after that. Okay? Next, under written reports of committees, we have from the Southeast Transportation Planning Committee the minutes of January 26th. Could we have a motion, please, to accept those? Thank you, Councillor Clark. Seconded by Councillor Walliser. Any questions or comments? Councillor Clark, did you make it to the meeting?
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. Yes, I was there. So one of the part of the process is that at the meeting for Southeast Transportation is that you nominate highways in your zone. We did that. We nominated 2 highways, one from the bypass out to Lampman 361 and from Boundary Dam Power Station out to Outram. So those are 2 areas that James and I sat down and put those forward. We also we can nominate more than that. So Tony has asked me to take a look at the Ross Percy entrance. So as part of the duties on that committee, although they're not within the town, they're part of the duties for there. And right now that's the nominations. And then when budget comes, they will supposedly prioritize some of those that we put forward. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate that. I know something else we talked to the RM about was paving that highway to the airport. So, that's something else that has been discussed. Very initial discussions, but I know that's something that could potentially be a win-win as well. Okay, thank you for that. All in favor? Carried. Okay, next, under written reports of committees, we have from the Woodlawn Regional Park, we've got the appointments. And Mr. Preddy talked to me, and he had suggested that we elect him as chairman and Stephen Kitchen as member from the Estevan Woodlawn Golf Club. Councillor Verova.
Thank you, Your Worship. Both myself and Councillor Clark are on this board. It's a very interesting board to be on, and I look forward to it. I hope Councillor Clark does too. And so, yes, at this meeting, we thought we'd just bring forward the group, the listing of the whole entire board. Just to point out, the Arm of Benson actually has 2 board members listed on there, but only one will come. So one is an alternate. And then the City of Estevan has the 2 councillors and I guess 2 members at large. So at this time, as you had just commented, Larry Preddy would be the person, and also Stephen Kitchen. So what I want to find out this week at our meeting is, are those the 2 positions that the City of Estevan will always appoint, which would be the Woodlawn Golf Club member and the chairperson, or does that vary from year to year? So we can bring that back later, just in a informational part for City Council.
Okay,
but for now, if we could maybe just if I can make a motion to accept the Estevan Woodlawn Regional Park Authority members for 2021 as listed, and that Larry Preddy and Stephen Kitchen be our 2 members at large that represent the city of Estevan.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Groban. Have we got a seconder? Councillor Clark, thank you. Any discussion? If not, ready for the question? All in favor? Thank you. Also, Councillor Groban, Councillor Clark, if you don't mind, if you would start discussions. I've had some initial discussions with Mr. Preddy, but the Rafferty Marina, Barry Dyes and a group of people have been volunteering, looking after that, and they're tired, and they would like to move that Rafferty Marina on to a couple of groups, maybe 3 groups, we were thinking, that could help continue to move that forward. And we were thinking Woodlawn Park, the City of Estevan, and the RM of Estevan, because the road going out there would have to be maintained by the RM of Estevan. So we were thinking to keep the Rafferty Marina moving forward. It needs updates, of course, but it could be, you know, with the right attention, probably without a great deal of money, it could be a great attraction, tourism attraction like Woodlawn and like Boundary Dam. So if you wouldn't mind taking that on our behalf to the board and having that discussion.
And so at this point, what we'd be asking from them is just their commitment to be a part of the discussions?
Yeah, would they be willing? And we'd have to have initial, we had one meeting with Barry Dyes and his people, and they just want to, at this stage, move it on. They're just tired, and we don't want to abandon the Rafferty Marina. We would like to see it, you know, over time, get built up and move forward.
Okay.
So I think with those 3 organizations involved, we could have the expertise of Woodlawn, we could have the RM looking after the road, and we would be participating in some fashion yet to be determined.
Okay, we will bring that forward. Our next meeting is actually this Wednesday, and then we'll bring that back to the next meeting. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate that. Okay, we had to vote on that, right, City Clerk? Okay, thank you. Again, under written reports, moving forward, we have the Souris Valley Theatre minutes. Could we have a motion, please, for those? Thank you. Councillor Cernick, seconder. Councillor Ford, thank you. Any questions or comments? I see during the minutes it was brought forward about reenacting the the strike in the coal fields. So that sounded quite interesting. So, you know, exploring the opportunity for the miners' strike to be reenacted. Okay, just a comment, Councillor Cernick, sir?
Yeah, I just, since these minutes, they've had another meeting, and it's kind of unfortunate in this COVID world, and they were looking at presentations, as you just mentioned, and a few others, but basically it sounds like they're going to be looking at 2022 to do any, it kind of almost was discussed. I don't think that they finalized everything, but it's just too much of a gamble to get out there and try to commit to shows that you don't know you can host. So
exactly.
So they're kind of their focus since these minutes is they do have youth camps, fundraisers, and obviously a long Santa list of upgrades that can be done to the building as well. So
right,
they definitely have a summer plan, but as it stands right now, it sounds like the shows will be put off until 2022.
Okay, good to know. Okay, thank you for that. Excuse me, Councillor Bro?
I was just questioning how that affected our funding, if they're still asking, because tonight's budget night. So I know in the past, it affected their funding for 2020. Are they still asking for the full 80,000?
Yes, and I would actually, just through the list of wants and needs that they currently have down there, it would probably be a very good year to invest into our infrastructure. They can be a summer for them to get done what they need to do, not have to worry about getting in the way of productions and stuff like that, and come out 2022 with a new look on it and be ready to go.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cernick. All in favor of the motion? Carried. Thank you. Okay, next, under written reports of committees, we have from the Estevan Public Library Board the minutes of January 19th. Could we have a motion, please, to accept those? Thank you. Councillor Walizer, seconded by Councillor Cernick. Thank you. Ready for the question? All in favor? Carried. Any comments on that? Who's on our board? Councillor Walizer.
This is my board, and as you can see from their minutes, there is a lot going on at the library, and they said they've been fielding quite a few questions about whether or not they're open. They are in fact open. They have a lot of new projects in place. They also have a couple challenges to highlight. They are looking to increase the number of library cards they issue each month, which is important because, as people may or may not realize, you do pay a fee to the library every year whether or not you access their services. So if you don't like that they're taking your money and you don't use their services, you can go to the library and use their services, far and above what you pay to access them. The other challenge they have going on is there is a substantial gap in the circulation numbers between what goes through Weyburn's branch versus what goes through Estevan's branch. So they are doing monthly challenges to try and meet or beat what Weyburn's circulation is doing. So another reason to get out and support the library.
Good stuff. Okay, thank you, Councillor Walizer. And there should be no reason why we can't beat the city of Weyburn. Okay. So moving forward, under written reports, the Estevan Arts Council minutes. Could we have a motion, please, for those? Councillor Ford, seconded by Councillor Clark. Ready for the question? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Councillor Ford, any comments on your board?
No, that was our first meeting. Our February meeting actually was a scheduled a training kind of thing. We'd found some free training for governance and volunteering and organizations, and it just didn't work out with everyone's schedule. So our actually next coming meeting is next Thursday, and it's a governance training session kind of thing. So over the next couple months, we're going to start, all the board members are going to start doing some training and just how to deal with nonprofit organizations and how to engage the community kind of thing. But just something to tell the community that they are also open. There is a visual art display in the leisure center. If anybody doesn't know where the Arts Council room is, it is in the leisure center. So if you're walking by or going to the library, check out the art displays that they do have. It's a very nice setup. The board has worked very hard on it and worked very hard on setting it all up. So yeah, if you're in the leisure center, just take a wander by. And we did talk about people taking selfies in front of it to gauge some interest and stuff. So if you're walking by, take a selfie, put it on the internet, and yeah, it was good. It was good first meeting though.
Good, thank you, Councillor Ford. And something I was wondering about and thinking about for a while, is there any chance, and I don't know if that would fall on your committee, but the murals around our city, at one time, we had people that were doing them. They beautified the city. They looked fantastic. Is there any way we could go back, and even if we had to hire a local artist to maybe pick out a few buildings, could you take that on as your committee and maybe see where that could go?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll put that forward. And I know the people on our arts board have a lot of contacts and everything, and of local contacts. So it's something that I'll definitely bring up. I'll send out an email and
Yeah,
see what
appreciate
everyone
that.
says.
Maybe even Amber could help out. She's great. She tells us at getting grants, so. And who's on that board? Is that what, Councillor Clark? Okay, well, maybe you can take that to your board as well, Councillor Clark.
Councillor
Thank you.
Clark has already started on a painting initiative, so maybe you can keep going on with that.
I heard he's a painter. I heard that.
I've got way bigger thing than that.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for that. Okay, next, under executive reports, we have the third-party grant budgetary discussion. We'll open the floor for that. Who would like to kick that off? Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Your Worship. So with the art gallery, one of the things was they had added, I think, $10,000 in, and part of that was for the painting of that building. So I don't know where that fits in, and that's one of the discussions, because it's a moving part, is that they have other places to spend that $10,000, or do we want to say that part of that 10,000 will go towards the the painting, or do we want to say, no, the city's going to be responsible? Those are some of the discussions that I don't know the answer to.
Right.
But I do know they increased it for that, and I think even for the front door to become handicap accessible.
Yeah, I think those are both needed things, so I just thought that council, and we can have that discussion, would be willing to put the money forward, and in this case, it would go to Habitat, but, you know, they could do the work, and everyone would benefit. Did you have your hand up, Councillor Frank? Did you want to add to that? Or were you done?
No, I'm done.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Frank.
So I kind of been thinking a little bit about this, and even just hearing tonight some comments from Councillor Cernick and Councillor Clark in regards to their boards. And I think COVID has obviously thrown a massive wrench into a lot of our boards and what they're doing. I know through looking at some of the financials, some of them had some surpluses from last year, which is great. We also did some reductions to their funding last year, so it's kind of been offset there. One thing I'm kind of hearing from a few groups is there is some projects, some dream projects that could be done, and I kind of pitched this last year when we were looking at it too, and you know, we've obviously learned a lot through a year of COVID, but I mean, obviously if we don't give them all the funding because they're not operating, you know, that's kind of more going into our pockets and not into our pockets, but into the cities. And of course, that's always valuable and we want to hold accountability, but I'm wondering if maybe instead we look at potentially figuring out, and it would need to be with some consultation with these groups, what dream projects could we maybe take advantage of? And the art gallery in particular, one I know Amber brought up to me in the 4 years I was on there, is they have a wide collection of art that the city owns that's not been articled, therefore it's not...
The King collection.
The King collection that's not articled, it's not insured, it sits in a back room and they can't do anything with it because, or they can do very little with it because and when it could be on tour. There's certainly dream, and then obviously the RCMP building, as you mentioned, there's a list there. I'm sure they all do. What I kind of almost think the right way for us to go tonight would be to approve the overarching amount of our third-party grant funds and not actually approve who's getting what, and then call them all in and ask for a little bit more of a, hey, what are you going to do in 2021 that's obviously different than you normally do, and how can we make sure you use the funds, not just go from our bank account to their bank account, but instead use them to get things done. We did that with the library last year. I think it was effective.
It worked out well with the library.
I think
they took the 60,000 and did needed improvements within the library. It was a win-win.
And it goes into a facility we own. I think it's a win-win on all of these groups, and I think that's a great way to maybe utilize this year to our advantage as opposed to our destruction. So.
Yeah, I like your thought process. It sounds good. An opportunity to do some needed work in some of these committees in this COVID year. Councillor Vroba.
Thank you, Worship. And I also agree with the fact city-owned buildings. I agree that upgrades that are done to them is an excellent thing. I just think that we also have to be careful because some of our budget numbers are going to change if these COVID restrictions don't change. I think it's, I'm in agreement that we approve the third-party grant overall budget amount that we're okay with allocating, but I don't think at this time tonight I'd be okay with approving each individual group that's asking for each one. I think it's changed. I think we had a few questions that we still haven't had answered on a couple of the groups. And so, again, I like your suggestion, Councillor Frank, that we look at it a little bit, and we have to call a special meeting, get it together, and go through what each one of these groups, actually, their COVID backup plan, I guess it would be called, because it would be interesting to find out if some of them have a surplus from last year, then I would almost say we have a COVID backup plan there too. And should all of those funds still be going if we have surpluses? I mean, we're there to help and support the groups. We're not there to build the bank accounts, so.
Yeah, well said, Councillor Vroba, and perhaps what we could do, though, is give them their first quarter funding, because some really do depend on that, if we could agree on that. And then in the interim, we've got a couple months, let's get them all here to council, have that discussion. And I know they get scared every time they come that we want to cut, and that is not necessarily the case, and that is not necessarily the way they should look at it. And I know what we're also looking is perhaps passing a bylaw that, you know, will give them the opportunity every year to come ahead of time and let us know why they need the needed funding, so we can wrap that in as well.
Yeah, because I also agree with exactly what you just said, but even when Minister Carr was speaking, the province funds a lot of these groups, and sometimes we're even unaware of the amount of money that they're getting. So I hear a lot from the taxpayers. They're basically, when we're using their money, which we all know, it's their money, whether it's coming from federal dollars, provincial dollars, or municipal dollars.
There's only one taxpayer,
That's right. And so at the end of the day, if we're funding twice, what only one agent, what one level of government should be funding. So I just think we need to really look at that, and I think our bylaw will help in that.
Yeah, and I think all we're asking of all our committees, well, two things. We're asking for accountability and we're asking for transparency. Councillor Walliser.
I'm so pleased with all the discussion that's been happening on all the boards I sit on. I've been a little bit of the Debbie Downer saying, you know, because of COVID, some of my groups have done wonderfully. They submit their budget request to us in October, and what they know now that they didn't when they made that request is that they've received October, November, December, January, February subsidies from the government. So they're actually in an even better position than they were when those requests were made prior to the election. So I really like your idea of bringing them back and saying, what do you know now, 5 months later, that you didn't know when you made these requests, when you thought you could have a 2021 season? I'd like to make a motion that we approve the third-party funding at the 2020 global level of $1,322,771 tonight, so that the budget can proceed, and then we meet with the groups to allocate the individual dollars at another time.
Okay, thank you for that. City Treasurer, did you have any comments on that?
Another thing you guys will have to decide then, should we be able to put the budget package online? Because in the budget package, the numbers are allocated to each group, or we would have to adjust the budget package to send out.
There is a disclaimer.
Yeah, I think it would be fine to put that out knowing that it's a living, breathing document and it will change, because I think we can all agree we will give them their first quarter, and then we'll start having the discussions, get the education, and then move forward from there. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Councillor Frank.
Just further to that, Your Worship, you had mentioned earlier the first quarter payments, and I'll just ask if Councillor Walliser, who's made the motion, would add to her motion to include covering the first quarter payments, as that's due right away here, just so they can get on, and then we can kind of evaluate from there.
Okay, thank you. Is that okay, Councillor Walliser? Is that in your motion?
To clarify, that would be based on the 2020 funding and not on their 2021 request.
Okay.
Right.
Okay,
I
then we don't
would
have to
make
worry.
that motion based on last year's allocation amount.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Vroba.
Sorry, and I just completely missed what Councillor Frank said. Basically, the 2020 is 1.372771 million compared to the 1.467771. So where do we think that we're going to save that? Or we're just already going to cut? Is that what you're thinking?
Looking at the budgets that they submit to us, I know confidently there are at least 5 groups that substantially increased their cash reserve last year and don't actually have the ability to spend it this year. So I think by working with the groups, we'll easily cover that shortfall.
And I'm going to agree with you because I've not done that research.
Okay, thank you. Have we got a seconder? Councillor Ford?
I'll also second that, but I just want to, for anybody, you know, we're talking about cuts and everything else, but this isn't, we're not gonna, you know, the chopping block isn't here kind of thing. We're looking at a nip and tuck here. It's not like one group is gonna get their total funding cut or anything like that, I don't think. I don't think that's our mission tonight. It's just to even things out and make sure we have a little bit of continuity, and also for the new counselors to be able to, you know, sit down and talk to these people, because it's easy to read something on a piece of paper, but it's nice to have that face-to-face with people, to know what we're donating or giving our money to be able to speak to the people who voted for us and say, you know what, this is what we're doing here in the community.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Ford. Councillor Frank?
Thank you, Worship. And further to that, Councillor Ford, I don't even know, I mean, it'll all come down to those conversations that we all have, but not even, and what I was thinking when I iterated was not even so much necessarily talking budget cuts. Obviously, we're approving the amount of money that we would need to give. What I think we need to look at is how can we use the money if we're not going to operate like we normally had, if we're not going to need the money to put towards programming or plays or anything like that. Can we use it for capital expenses or use it for something which might mean one group's going to get more than they normally did, one group's going to get less, but we're going to shuffle that around so that it's beneficial for everybody. I think it just requires a lot more conversation one-on-one than it does just through what we can do it in a spreadsheet.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Frank. Councillor Wallis?
Some of the words that we've used to discuss this tonight, we're talking about accountability, transparency, creating that continuity. We've also touched on how we want these groups to have synergy with each other. They're using the same volunteers, they're providing services to the same community, so really looking to find those partnerships. The other word that I want to introduce is the idea of ownership. So when my tax dollars disappear, they're no longer mine. But when I put my money towards a group in the community, there's that investment and that sense of ownership in making sure that that program thrives in our community. And I think we do have to be careful of continually creeping up the level of funding that the city offers, because for a lot of these groups, as the city dollars have increased, the fundraising dollars have decreased, and we don't want that. We want a community that has buy-in and ownership over the programs that are being offered, and this is a good place to start.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Walliser. Any other comments? If not, we've got the motion on the floor. Ready for the question? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. City Manager, 2021 budget.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the budget package has been out since the last meeting for feedback. The only feedback that we did receive was from the Chamber of Commerce. They did just had some couple small items. I can bring them up here. There was things about the Churchill pool renovation. Does that pool remain a paddling pool? So the current plan is yes. If that is to be approved in budget, it was to remain as a paddling pool.
That's right.
The other question was in regards to Bay Meadows having a future green space. We have not talked about that. I know that was developed. There used to be a park in that area. Condos were developed. We have not put a park back in that area. So
maybe council can do a little bit of thinking, drive by, have a look, and for future discussions, we can, throw that on the table.
There's also a question about additional pathways and connectors. So we do have a submission in for funding for that, and hopefully we hear something positive on that in the future. So we have that.
And if I could, City Manager, we've got two big requests for funding out. One is for the pathways. It's a $4 million project. If we get it, the city would be putting $1 million forward for that. So again, although this budget document is a living, breathing document, it will change if we get some of these grants. The other grant that looks favorable is the one on 4th Street, and that was probably, what, City Manager, about $500,000?
Yeah.
But we were looking at, if we do that, at taking that $500,000 out of the existing budget. We feel pretty comfortable that we can do that without negatively impacting the budget?
Yeah, and that's how it's usually worked. We always have applications under different funding programs, both provincially and federally, and if we're approved, obviously when you get funds from those agencies, you adjust your budget accordingly or adjust your borrowing accordingly. It's how we have done it over the last several years. So
exactly. So if we were to get, for example, this big project, and I know people have been waiting on this for years, this pathway throughout the city, which would be a legacy project. Again, we don't know yet where that's at. We're hopeful, but if we get that this year, and it's up to council, we would probably pay $1 million of debt instead of $2 million and pay for that project that way. Something for council to think about over and above your existing budget that will probably pass tonight. The fact that we do have, some moving parts as far as grants, and there's a couple of them that we may get. So just give that some thought. Sorry, go ahead, City Manager.
And the The other was a request from a different individual at the chamber in regards to police budget. Is it in line with other cities of familiar size? And about police working outside city limits. So I know this has been brought up to the police board, so we could provide those answers as they come out from the police board.
Yeah, absolutely. Bill, if it's all right with council, we'll answer those questions from the police board.
Yep.
Absolutely. Councillor Walliser?
I did receive one email that congratulated the city on the work that's been done so far. One concern that was raised was actually a concern that I had before getting on council, that it seems like we're removing insignificant amounts of snow and that we're sweeping streets regularly. And I wanted to share with everyone that the reason we're doing that is actually preventative maintenance. Our manager has told us that this is going to reduce the amount of moisture that accumulates on the pavement, and hopefully by doing these seemingly unnecessary tasks, we're actually extending the lifespan of our infrastructure.
That's correct. And it stops a lot of the potholes from materializing with the moisture laying. It degrades the sub base, and then you end up with potholes. And it is a fixed cost anyway. We're paying our people. You know, this is not overtime monies that are doing that. Councillor Broba?
Thank you, Your Worship. I was also going to speak to that, Councillor Walliser, and the fact that our city should be very, very proud of our roads and drainage department, because Norm Mack and his crew, they have our streets looking in tip-top shape at all times. We can pretty much, after a storm, drive down almost every street. And if you go to other cities, I know, again, I bring up Brandon quite often because my mom lives there. I'm amazed at how high
Councillor Broba, you're not traveling to Manitoba.
I have not
Just
seen.
checking.
Just checking. I haven't seen my mother since July, for anyone that's questioning that.
Okay.
And she lives 3 hours away, but we won't get started on that. But when I did go last winter, the snow piles that they pile in the areas of the end of a street are so high, they restrict being able to see when you're traveling. 30 years ago, when I first moved to Estevan, you couldn't drive down some of the side streets without getting a tow truck to get you out of there. And that's how this city used to operate. So I'm pretty proud of our roads and drainage department. I think the way Norm Mack and the crew are running it, he definitely 100% is doing an efficient job. And there's also been some concern over the amount of water breaks that have been happening lately. But again, if anyone has any friends in any other community, I'm sure if you phone them, you'll find out the water breaks are just as high, if not higher. It's because of the extreme temperatures that we've had.
That's correct.
Anyone that remembers last week, minus 40 some. This week, we're looking at +9. So at some point, the pipes are going to give. But again, good work from the drainage crew, because I've seen them out working there, and I would not want to trade them jobs.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councillor Broba. They do a fantastic job, and we're very fortunate we have great staff. Thank you. Okay, anything else? If not, we'll go to the city manager again for Shop Estevan. Oh, okay. Are we ready to approve the budget? Sorry. Thank you. Thank you. All of this diatribe back and forth. Thank you, City Clerk, for keeping me on task. Do we have a motion for the budget? Councillor Walliser.
Do we need to amend our motion to reflect the third-party grant dollar value
I'll refer it.
back? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll refer it back to the previous one.
I will make that motion.
Go ahead, City Manager.
Yeah, just to mention, so that budget package out is just administration's recommendation, so any amendments that you make to it now are in that change the budget that was administration proposed.
Yeah, and it continues to change, Councillor Walliser. It's very flexible, and it's basically a guideline. Yeah. And council can change it at any time moving forward as well. Okay, so we have that motion. Have we, Councillor Ford? Seconder? Okay, Councillor, I don't want to say Travis. Councillor Frank, go ahead. Oh, you had your hand, oh, you want to vote already?
I was seconding, sorry.
Okay, you're a keener. Oh, okay, good. Are we ready for the question? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, under executive reports, we have from Land Development.
No, Shop Estevan.
Oh, sorry, Shop Estevan. City Manager, yes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this letter was presented at last council meeting in regards to the Shop Estevan dollars being used at city facilities. I was tasked with talking to the DBA. It's now included in that report, and their interpretation was very similar to what administration's interpretation was, that this was for COVID spending locally to stimulate the economy and not into city paid facilities. So the response is in the memo, so council can proceed as they wish.
Okay, what's the wish of council? Councillor Frank and then Councillor Ford.
I would make the motion that we go along with what they said and continue to not accept Shop Estevan dollars at city facilities.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Ford, was that, you in favor of that as well?
Yes, I'll second that. And I know there was talk about, maybe using it within the leisure center for various things, but in the essence of keeping things simple and supporting our small businesses instead of the city as a whole, I would like to second that motion.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments? If not, ready for the question? All in favor? Carried, thank you. Next, we move to land development, discretionary use, 234 5th Street.
So Richard has joined us via Zoom.
Oh, good. Hi, Richard, how's the leg? Or they still call you Hopalong?
Oh, you're muted, Richard.
You're muted, Richard. Hit that little microphone with the cross across it.
We had this issue before. It's not a mute issue.
It's not a mute issue? Sorry, Richard, you are looking real good tonight, I gotta tell you, but we can't communicate.
Oh, he said he can hear him fine from the newsroom.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, just wait, Richard. Let's see.
Okay, Richard, hum a few bars.
Yeah, okay.
There you go. Good man, we got you.
Yeah, okay. All right, I have 2 development permits for you. They're on adjoining sites. The developer is the same person in each case. It's an old SaskTel complex on 2nd Ave and 5th Street.
Sask Power.
Yeah,
3rd Ave and 5th Street, yeah.
Yeah, Sask Power, yep, okay.
Yeah, so the one building is intended to be used for a cleaning service, dry cleaning, other types of cleaning kind of things. It'll be strictly wholesale. And what have you, they're not going to have clients coming to the door. And the other building is going to be for a sporting goods, hunting and fishing kind of store.
Okay,
And so the one that's the hunting and fishing store will have access to paved roads and parking lots and that kind of thing, should be no problem. And that would be standard conditions on that approval.
okay, Councillor Groba, you had a question? Go ahead, please.
Actually, I would just like to make the motion that that is an excellent idea on both fronts. I think it's a great use of that building, and I would like to make the motion that we proceed with that.
Okay, thank you. Have we got a seconder? Councillor Walliser. Any further questions or comments? If not, ready for the question? All in favor? Wow, you're good, Richard. We're already halfway there. Next, from on.
Cannabis.
Well,
The other permit, does anybody from council remember where Living Skies CrossFit used to be located on 6th Street just before Souris?
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, they did not survive the COVID shutdown, and so now we have the Polish Kitchen, which opened up on Kensington. They needed additional space for preparing a lot of their food and manufacturing pierogies and that kind of thing. So they moved in there, and again, it's a discretionary use in this industrial zone, but they meet all our technical requirements, so we're recommending approval on that as well.
okay, thank you, Richard. And I believe they're employing like 4 or 5 people, which is great.
Yeah.
Any questions from council? Comments? Okay, we got a motion. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you. Have we got a seconder? Councillor Cernick. Any further questions, comments? Ready for the question? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, moving right along, we've got from Fire Services, the fire report for January. Could we have a motion to accept that, please? Councillor Cernick, thank you. seconded by Councillor Frank. Any further questions, comments? If not, ready for the question? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, next from the building official, the building permit for January. Could we have a motion, please, for that? Thank you, Councillor Clark. Seconded by Councillor Vroba. Any further questions, comments? If not, ready for the question? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, from the water treatment plant manager, the water quality report. Could we have a motion for the water quality report? Thank you, Councillor Ford, seconded by Councillor Walliser. Any questions, comments? If not, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, from the water treatment plant manager, the annual wastewater report. Could we have a motion for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Cernick, seconded by. Thank you. Councillor Clark. Any further questions, comments? If not, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, from the water treatment plant manager, the 2020 annual drinking water report. Could we have a motion, please, for that? Thank you, Councillor Vroba. Seconder. Councillor Ford. Any questions, comments? If not, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. And the water, since the pipelines went in, is awesome.
Shane's online if you want to talk to him.
Excuse me, City Clerk?
Shane's online if you want.
Oh, okay. Shane, did you have any comments?
Nope, just that some of the increase in quality is not fully reflected just because it's an average for the whole year. So the tests are a mixture of boundary water and rafferty water.
Okay, good. But it will continue to get better, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for your efforts in that regard. Much appreciated. Okay, last but not least, from the water treatment plant manager, we've got the drinking water notice to customers. Could we have a motion for that, please? Councillor Walliser, seconded by Councillor Cernick. Any questions, comments? If not, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thanks, Shane.
Thanks, Shane. Thank you for your work. You do a great job for us. Okay, introduction of bylaws. We're looking at bylaw 21-2035. Bylaw to amend penalty and discounts. First reading. City Clerk, did you have any comments on that?
I will refer this to the city treasurer.
City treasurer, basically, city treasurer, we're doing this so that the people that owe under $10, we're not going to make them angry, right?
That is correct. We'll stop the unnecessary mailing out of these very small amounts and the associated cost with that.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for that. So tonight we'll be asking for first reading. We'll advertise for a couple of weeks and then it'll come back. Councillor Frank?
Thank you, Your Worship. To the city treasurer, do we have a rough idea, very rough, of like how much a year that actually adds up to? Like, are we talking about we need to adjust our budget for this, or maybe city manager knows? Like,
The amounts were very small. There was maybe like 10 letters that went out, so I'm going to guess or estimate that it would be
hundreds of dollars.
$100, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, basically it's canceling anything, Councillor Frank, under $10. Councillor Vroba?
Thank you, Worship. Just to clarify, we're canceling sending the letter. We're not canceling what they owe, right?
City manager?
Thank you, Councilor Broba. This would give us the ability to waive it. So like we've had one this week that was 22 cents. We can just do that on our end without them coming in to have to pay the quarter, and that's what this bylaw allows us to do. But we can definitely amend that if you would like those people to come.
Well, my only concern is, and I'm not saying people would do this, but there are people that will, because everyone likes to push the envelope, is I'll just pay $10 less, $9.99 less than my taxes this year for the next 10 years. And You know, I just gonna say that it will affect our budget if too many people do that.
City treasurer?
Yeah, and just one comment on that is that we're only going, this bylaw only is for the penalty amount. It's not, so we still may be sending out some amounts if their taxes that they owe are $9, the tax itself, we would still send it out. This
That's
is
what
just
it-
the
yeah.
penalty that gets
Okay,
applied.
thanks for clarifying that. Then I'm totally fine with the bylaw. I actually thought you meant we were gonna clear off anyone who owed $10 less in taxes, because you would just carry that
Just
over next year.
penalty.
Okay, then I'm 100% fine with this.
Okay, thank you, City Treasurer, for clarifying. Councillor Frank?
I thank you, Worship. I was just going to add, this is for people like myself whose accountant forgot to send in the payment and paid like 3 days late and got a $7 bill in the mail, who then had to ask his accountant to pay that $7, saying it's your fault. But that's what we're looking at, right? And I'm glad you clarified that, because I wanted to be sure that too. We're not actually writing off taxes. It's just that paid 2 days late and got a tiny little interest for a charge or something.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Frank. I think we've got the motion. No, we don't? Oh, okay, okay, thank you, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Walliser. Any further questions? If not, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, next, public hearings. We've got public notice response on rezoning bylaw 2134. And Richard, thank you so much for not leaving us. Basically, as you're well aware, we were looking at allowing something that was not in our original bylaw. Now people have come forward, Teresa Dyer and Tanya Fieser. We're writing in regards to the city's bylaw 2021-2034, which we would like to offer full support. It's good to see more businesses in Estevan. When reading the bylaw as stated, Souris Avenue between 4th and 6th, and 6th Street between Souris and 13th. When it said between, we assumed 5th Street and 12th Ave was between those listed areas and would be included. After talking with Richard and Judy, we found out it was not included. Richard and Judy recommended we write a letter to address this. So at this time, we would like to ask if this area could be included in the bylaw. So I think, City Clerk, what we would probably like to do is let this bylaw that we were going to revisit, because now that business is going to relocate, let that bylaw die and give the opportunity for Richard and the police to canvass this inner core area, give them a few weeks with the intention of canvassing, see what the people would like, and then coming back to council. Is that correct? And Richard, did you hear that? Does that make sense?
Yes, that's generally what we're looking at doing, yes.
Okay, so all we have to do, City Clerk, is nothing, and then this bylaw will die, is that right?
I prefer if you'd pass this report, ask him to do ask land development to do public consultation, and then
Okay,
move
but-
forward, but at the end of your agenda, not pass second and third reading of this bylaw.
Okay, so we won't give second and third reading tonight. We'll ask for a motion to pass this report with the intention of canvassing, giving Richard the authority to canvass the area and the police, and then come back within 2 to 3 weeks with their findings with the intention of passing a new bylaw. Go ahead, Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Your Worship. Are we sure that the person that was going to go on 6th Street is going to go somewhere else? Because
Yeah.
that's a definite, because I would say that when I passed this, I thought I was passing it for every 4th, 5th, and 6th, but I guess that
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll have to clarify that because that wasn't the original intent, but it is a good idea. If you're going to do that, include that, and then you're done.
As long as the person that's going on 6th isn't decides that other one didn't pan out, then would we be holding him up if he decided to go back?
Oh, they've already got a hold of us and
Okay.
said they don't need that location.
This process, I'll make the motion then.
Okay, thank you. Have we got a seconder?
I'll second the motion, but I did have a question as well.
Okay.
Just how many stores, I have no problem with where they go, but how many stores are allowed within the city?
Right now, Councillor Cernick, there's no limit. It's wide open.
Okay.
So I guess we were looking at it somewhat like the taxi bylaw at one time. It was wide open, and then we let free enterprise dictate. Eventually, when they start going down, I guess you found the right number. Okay. So we've got the motion. Any further questions? If not, ready for the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, we've got giving notice. Bill C-213, the Canada Pharmacare Act. This is from Peter Julian. Dear Mayor Ludwig and Council, Happy New Year. Hope your family's healthy. This is a friendly reminder to follow up on my request sent in November regarding my private member's bill, Bill C-213, an act to enact the Canada Pharmacare Act. Bill C-213 is a groundbreaking new federal legislation modeled off the Canada Health Act to establish a universal, single-payer, comprehensive, and public pharmacare plan that is accessible and affordable, the very principles of universal Medicare. The Canada Pharmacare Act will deliver better health care and improve the health and lives of millions of Canadians. See below a draft for Council's consideration. What's the wish of Council on this? Councillor Frank.
Just question to your worship and perhaps City Clerk, did we discuss this in November after, was this not
City
been brought
Clerk,
up once before?
Councillor Broba, did you want to?
Well, I just wanted to answer your question actually because we did discuss it in closed last meeting, and it was asked, I believe, by Councillor Wallies to be brought into open just for information purposes for the citizens of Estevan, for anyone who actually was wishing to support this, they could go ahead. So it's really not there for us as a council, I don't believe, to put a motion forward to support it. It's just if each individual person would like to go ahead and do that, it's been brought forward as per Councillor Wallies' recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Vroba. That would be my question is, usually when I see things like this come up, usually our standard answer is that we don't like to get too involved in the federal politics unless it's about carbon capture, then we're in it. And anything else, we're just gonna let the citizens use their rights to vote for, so.
Okay, so thank you, Councillor Frank. That'll be more for information, thought forward for that. Moving on, motions from committee. We have none this evening. Consideration of bylaws, and I guess we'll just ask that we not consider this and move forward, and it'll die its own death. And then we'll have...
We don't need a motion to advance it?
No.
Okay.
And then we'll discuss with Richard's guidance and the police guidance with the inner core. We'll discuss that probably at the next meeting, how they made out. Okay, next, inquiries. Councillor Broba.
Thank you, Your Worship. One question at Creighton Lodge I keep getting asked is about when the vaccines are coming. So again, phase 1 is still going on with the provincial government rolling that out. Creighton Lodge residents have not been able to access any vaccine as of yet. A lot of them are quite eager. Rumor has it that the long-term care and nursing home residents are accessing that this week. Hopefully, that's true rumor. And that our residents can, and then hopefully phase 2 is opening up by, I think, April. So for anyone that has any questions on that, you can go to the Saskatchewan government website, and they have their vaccine rollout all out there for you to print out and check it out. And also, we attended SUMA virtually at the beginning of February since our last meeting, and it was not bad compared to the actual going to the convention and being able to discuss issues with our colleagues from other communities. But there are still quite a few videos that a lot of us are watching on our own time outside of the SUMA convention this year. So it was a different format. I hope we never have to do it again because I'm over Zoom, but I can't wait till we can gather.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Councillor Broba. Councillor Clark?
Nothing tonight, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wallies?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ford?
I also have nothing tonight.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cernak?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to throw out there that the Estevan exhibition Association is planning for the Energy City exhibition for June the 10th to 13th. Of course, the question is, will COVID allow that? But from the president there, Tamara Huber, she said something will be happening on those dates, no matter what. So look for that, and can't wait. Thanks.
Absolutely, that'll be great. They always put on a great rodeo. Perhaps council can get involved with chasing greased pigs. Councillor Frank, what do you think?
Oh, that doesn't sound like something I want to be involved in. I wouldn't want to get any mud under my nails.
Okay. Have you got anything this evening?
You know what, I was just thinking one that I just want to give huge credit to your worship and to our city management. In the last 4 years, we've always strived for transparency and finding new ways to bring more to the public, and there's never an end to being more transparent, for sure. But this council particularly has put an emphasis on that after our election, where we heard a lot about it, and our meetings have gone from frequently being 10 minutes to, I think we're almost going to hit 2 hours. We just about did it, guys. So I'm really proud of that. I love seeing our open agendas being 5 to 10 times longer than our closed. So I feel very thankful for all the work you guys are doing to get more and more out to the public. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Councillor Frank. And we owe this, of course, especially to our new council, because we follow their lead. So that's great. Good stuff. City Manager?
Nothing, Your Worship.
Okay. City Clerk?
Nothing today, Your Worship.
City Treasurer?
Nothing, Your Worship.
Okay, well, Dave, I hope you're happy. You're smiling over there. I can see it. So with that, thank you so much for everyone that's watched and attended this evening. Do we have a motion to move into committee? Thank you, Councillor Surdick. Seconded by Councillor Walliser. Ready for the question? All in favor? Carried. Thank you so much. We stand adjourned.